Why don't we tell everyone now what we're doing with this podcast, how it came about? I think we've, for a long time, also been wanting to collaborate with one another and figure out how can we do that? What's a funny, humorous way we can sort of meld our work together? And I think that's kind of where those were like the beginning ideas. But what is Little T Trauma Podcast about?
It's one of those things where we have such great, juicy conversations on the daily, and like you said, we're both involved in healing work in our day-to-day lives. We're doing stuff that can be quite serious sometimes, and there is obviously, like I said, we connected through our love of memes, right? And those memes kind of centered around the healing journey a lot of the time. So it is a really fun space, and I think for me anyway, this little endeavor that we're embarking on together is a way of kind of showcasing some of the things that we've learnt along our ways with that, lighthearted take on some things as well, right? Because healing and trauma can be quite a heavy subject, and not to take away from that, but have a look at it from a little bit of a different angle that's accessible and but also, uplifting and enriching.
The healing work is it's just such a heavy word. And I think one of the things that I instantly really liked about you was that you always kind of took it with a humorous approach, and that yeah, it's heavy and sometimes it can be hard, but also it's kind of humorous that we're kind of bumping up against these things that trip us up, or really invested in changing, but sometimes that change can be really hard, and in that hardness there's a lot of humor too. So I really like that we're going to try to take this different approach to normalizing healing, normalizing addressing your trauma, and normalizing the little t trauma. So to explain to the listeners, there's a spectrum of trauma. So there's little t and big T trauma that is sort of collectively accepted in the world of psychology and self-help and personal development, where little t traumas are things that are traumatic events that don't necessarily impede us completely from being in the world and being able to interact with the world around us. And then on the other side of that spectrum is big T trauma that is really harmful and creates physical obstacles, mental obstacles in the way of us being able to connect or to live fully into the fullness of our human experience and shared journey. And then there's everything in between there. But we specifically want to talk about the little T traumas that are somewhat humorous, which we will get into in a little bit, and also normalizing that they do affect us. And, they don't necessarily have to always lead us down a path of deep inquiry, but we can look at them and also let them go pretty easily as well if we've got a good mindset. And I don't know if you want to add anything else there, Laura.
I think, like you said, it's about exploring those little things, right, that kind of signpost us to something deeper going on underneath. And sometimes, when you're in therapy or a coaching session and something comes up, often it will link back to something in childhood that, certainly that I found in the work that I do and in my own personal journey, on the surface seems quite insignificant, but can have such a massive impact on a person and their, psychology and how they're programmed and how they're then showing up in life and the results that's creating.